welcome to welcome to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host Michael. Joining me live from Taiwan and Sean Newton joining me live from the UK. The one and only Mr. Boxing Addict. How you doing tonight, fellas?
Good.
Yeah, great, thanks.
For those that are new to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, let me say that tonight's show will be the season finale, the final show of 2014. So this is the last show of the year. We will resume things up in January. The Pound for Pound Boxing Report is a boxing show, YouTube boxing show, live YouTube boxing show / podcast / blog that discusses all things boxing. The motto is: when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When boxing is bad, we will talk about it. The bottom line is, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. To find information about the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, there are two main places you can go. You can go to the blog page, and the link for that is p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com, and repeat that, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com, where you can find past episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report YouTube show and podcast, but you can also on the blog find articles, videos and whatnot done by yours truly. You can also find information about Pound for Pound Boxing Report on the official podcast page. The link for that is p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com, and repeat that, p4pboxingreport.podomatic.com. On the blog page as well as the podcast page. On the podcast page, you can find all previous episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast. The blog page and the podcast page also has links to where to find us all over social media: Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Google+, YouTube page, the Pinterest board, Podomatic page where the podcast is, the RSS feed where you can subscribe and check out the show there. We're also on Stitcher Radio. Just go to StitcherRadio.com. You just do a search of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, POUND, the number 4, POUND Boxing Report, and check us out there. And by all means, once you check us out there, leave a comment. Let us know what we can do, how can we improve the show. And finally, we got a link to where you can donate your account. The link for that is donateyouraccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. Let me repeat that: donateyouraccount.com/P4P Boxing Report. Be a friend, be a pal, be a buddy. Donate your Twitter account, and what happens is any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page, your Twitter account, should you subscribe, your Twitter account will be able to retweet any tweet that comes from the Pound for Pound Boxing Report Twitter page. With all those matters out the way, let's get the show started. Talk about all the boxing that went down this past weekend. What I want to do here, since we kind of pressed for time this evening, since there was so much boxing on HBO and Showtime, I want to reduce everything to just a handful of bouts. I want to start off by talking about the main event on HBO: Timothy Bradley fighting Diego Chaves. The fight was ruled a draw. As far as I'm concerned, a ridiculous draw. The scores were 115-112, 113 for Bradley, 116-112 for Chavez, which is a joke to me, and finally 114-114, a draw. I'll go to you on this one, Boxing Addict. In assessing the fight, look, I thought Bradley won. I thought he won 8-4 in rounds. Bradley was he lacked a little bit of a spark to me. Maybe it was a bit of a letdown following his fight with his loss to Pacquiao earlier this year. But Bradley controlled the bout. He was the ring generalship proved itself. He was the sharper counterpuncher. He landed the more effective punches. He actually threw slightly more punches, but landed a lot more. Good fight, pretty exciting fight. Bradley was hindered by a swollen eye. It was almost closed shut, but I think he had control throughout. But yet it was scored a ridiculous draw. Your assessment of the fight, and am I wrong in thinking that Bradley was just a tad bit off here?
Yeah, well, Bradley's at it again, isn't he? In my opinion, he won the fight. I had him winning by 2 or 3 rounds. I thought it was a terrible decision, really. But he's always in these fights where he just struggles to get the victory, and he leaves it sort of in the balance. I thought he boxed pretty well, but having said that, I think Chavez won maybe 2 or 3 of the last sort of 4 rounds, and if you give him 1 or 2 of the others, it's a close fight. Yeah, I'm unconvinced by him at the moment. I know obviously the eye was a big problem for him, but it wasn't a good night for him at all. And I think after the fight, in the interview, he seemed pretty sort of down about it all. He needs to get himself a big fight now and establish himself again for me, because as I said last week, I know I was winding you up a little bit. I said he'd lost sort of 4 of his last 5 fights or whatever. But they've all been pretty close, and he's not really doing it at the moment for me.
Chavez in his last fight out was disqualified in his fight against Brandon Rios. Bradley was effective, Sean, particularly with the right hand. But again, and I'll ask you this: I'll ask you your assessment of Bradley. And do you think he was sharp? Do you think he was a little bit off? And in terms of his future, where do you think he goes from here?
I didn't think he was a little bit off. I think he boxed like he usually does. He can box really well, uses movement, uses speed, good combination punching, but he just didn't do it enough. And there were times where he was sort of looking a little bit vulnerable, or he'd take a little break and allow Chavez to come into the fight again and put the pressure on. Chavez wasn't brilliant himself on the night, but with the scoring, it's a very, very funny one, isn't it? It depends how you see it.
Your assessment of how things went down, Sean, and the future of Tim Bradley.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Bradley, a lot of times he tends to fight down to his opposition and exchange more than he needs to. I mean, Chavez, he's tall, and he was a longer fighter than Bradley, so I think Bradley thought he could get inside. But with a guy like Chavez and the dirty tactics that happen, I mean, it's not necessarily the smartest thing to do. And in this case, what happened to him is I got injured, and he ended up having to fight in the second half at a sort of disadvantage. He probably should have boxed a little more, but he didn't. And I think that cost him and affected him. And I think obviously there was a letdown because he just didn't show that much fire. And, the problem is sometimes he just doesn't adjust in the ring like he should. He makes the wrong adjustments. I think it's funny that people say there's a conspiracy about him getting ripped off. I mean, obviously the judges, it didn't look very good because, I had Bradley winning. But like Boxing Addict said, I also thought he did well in the last few rounds. And, if you gave him a few early rounds because it was close and competitive, then the fight really gets close. So a draw isn't outside of the, what I could see. But, some of the scorecards pro Chavez, I don't see that. I don't see how he was winning the fight so convincingly. It's interesting because in this card, Bradley is the A side. He's the guy that's going to get the big fight with a Thurman or a Porter or somebody down the road. So Chavez is just an opponent. So I don't think anybody was hoping that Chavez was going to get a decision in his favor in this fight.
Yeah, to your point about the A side, Bradley got $2 million, while Chavez got $35,000.
That's incredible. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. If we're going to be honest here, he should have gotten more Chavez, given that he's been on HBO before, given that he is kind of a name. $35,000 is a bit ridiculous.
Well, I think after the Rios fight, though, he had to beg to get back on. That's why.
Right. But when you think boxers probably take away in the end maybe a quarter of their purse,
yeah.
That's pretty bad for such a big fight.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Let's move on. I'll go to you on this one, Sean. I will make note that we will have a special guest joining us during the show, so just look out for that. I'll go to you on this one, Sean. Let's move on and talk about the other fight on the card that went down in Las Vegas Saturday night. We talked about Andy Lee's fight with Matt Korobov for the vacant WBO middleweight title, and we both kind of agreed that the only way that Lee would have a shot is that if he was to land a big punch, and I'll be damned if he did.
Yeah. Everyone thought Korobov was going to win the fight over the distance with more skill and a tough guy. But everyone, boxing
courtesy. I was going to say, I may be freezing on my end, excuse me, but he landed that big shot courtesy of his right hook, hurt Korobov, and landed a bombardment of punches towards Korobov, which forced the referee to step in and stop the fight. Uh, Lee was it was a kind of a back and forth bout. I think Korobov had the advantage throughout the first 5 rounds, but Lee was competitive. But again, kudos to Lee. He led the big shot. He followed up and he got the stoppage and he surprised us all.
Yeah. You know, it's like we were saying. I mean, Boxing Addict also alluded to it last video as well, talking about how Lee has a puncher's chance, and it would be great if he did. And sure enough, he got the punch that he needed, and now leads into a Saunders fight, which will be huge in the UK, and shows good styles. You know, boxer against puncher. You know, I think Korobov, his problem in, you know, he's so used to winning that he wasn't able to protect himself after getting hurt. I mean, he should have taken the count, should have got himself to recover and been able to sort of protect himself to the end of the round. But yeah, he looked like he just fell apart.
Let me ask you a quick follow-up question before I go to Boxing Addict. Do you think the fact that Korobov it's obvious that he came in, he blew up so much between the weigh-in and the fight. Do you think that the effect of getting down to the weight may have had a role in him getting hurt so bad by that punch? Or do you just think that it was just a big lucky punch that it really didn't matter at all?
Oh, I mean, that plays in. I mean, that was always one of the things people talked about. Many boxers like Khan, right? Getting down to 140 really sort of sapped his legs and took a lot of his strength out and got him hurt a lot easier than would be the norm. So, I mean, that could play in. But then, I mean, Andy Lee has always been known as a big puncher, so it's no surprise that he has one punch sort of power in both hands.
Well, I'll go to you on this one, Attic. Quickly, your assessment of the fight. And since you are over in England, it's anticipated that Lee will fight Billy Joe Saunders in his next defense. Well, because Saunders is his mandatory defense, given how he beat Chris Eubank Jr. Last month. Talk about that potential bout. How big is it there in the UK? What's the talk regarding Lee and Korobov? I mean, Lee and Billy Joe Saunders.
Yeah, it's not really grasped anybody's attention at the moment. To be fair, it's not a huge fight. It'll probably be a big fight in Ireland. They're talking about maybe going to Croke Park, which is a big stadium in Ireland, to have that one.
Is that where Collins fought his second bout with Eubank, or is that a different place?
No, that's a different place actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Croke Park is it's like a rugby stadium. So I think they're dreaming a little bit if they want to sell that out. But then again, the Irish get behind the fighters, so you never know. But yeah, going back to the fight, he got it, didn't he? He got that punch from the gods. So it worked out for him. But before that, he was on his way to losing a points decision. And a pretty poor one. Korobov wasn't looking very decent to me. He was kind of winning the fight, but I go back to what I said last week. I don't really rate either of them. I think Lee's always got a chance, hasn't he, with that big punch? That's what it comes down to. But I'd expect Billy Joe Saunders to totally outbox him and use his range and not allow him to land that big punch. Also, I think Saunders can take a punch pretty well. Korobov, I think like Sean was saying, he probably should have took a knee, or he didn't seem to know what to do once he was being hit. So, yeah, it was disappointing for Korobov, but fair play to Lee. It's nice to see his happy little face.
Before we go to the Showtime bout, I have to mention this, and I'll just give you guys the floor to speak on this quickly as you can. The Jesse Benavidez Jr. Mauricio Herrera bout. I will agree for one of the few times with Max Kellerman and anybody else. It reminded me of Jesse Vargas' fight with, I think, Shofikov earlier this year. Look, you could, giving all the benefit of the doubt, you can say that Benavidez won. I don't think so. But if you're giving him every benefit of the doubt, you could say he won. but by 6 points and by 4 points. I mean, 117, 111 on one card, 116, 111, 116, 112 on the two other cards. That's 9-3 and 8-4 twice, gentlemen. I don't understand. I don't understand, first of all, why Benavidez Jr. won. And if they gave him the decision, I don't understand by that wide of a margin. Mauricio Herrera got robbed, as far as I'm concerned, against Danny Garcia earlier this year. Got robbed again in a much bigger fashion this time in this bout Saturday against Justin Benavidez Jr. I'll give you the guys the floor to just go off and say what you got to say, because this is ridiculous. This is a joke.
Well, I'll let Sean talk about this because I didn't actually catch the fight. I heard he got robbed, but I was kind of streaming in between two channels to watch all the boxing the other night, so it was difficult for me.
Me too. Yeah, from what I saw in the fight, and I mean, I watched the whole fight and then I watched it afterwards. I mean, Herrera was pushing the fight and landing lots of punches, but I mean, a lot of it was ineffective. A lot of times he had him on the ropes and he was roughing him up and landing nothing effective. I mean, just sort of taking the play away. But when Benavidez turned and was the aggressor, he was landing solid punches. I mean, I thought in this fight he landed the more significant punches. You know, I mean, you could say it's a close fight and it could go either way, which I would agree. The way the cards were, you know, that's been an ongoing issue. So, I mean, it's not a
Excuse
surprise,
me, I said Jesse Benavidez. I meant to say Jose Benavidez. My apologies. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah. I mean, I thought when he was being aggressive, he was easily winning the fight. He was landing the far better punches. I mean, he was showing all that potential that he had. The problem with him is a lot of times he let the veteran take the play away and dictate the pace. And, you know, that sort of put the benefit on Herrera. But I didn't see Herrera do a lot, you know, of impressive stuff, except just be a veteran, be tough, land more punches, throw more punches. But, I mean, a lot of them were just slapping body punches and nothing really significant.
But the problem was that Benavidez, he didn't do enough.
Well, yeah. I mean, the problem was he wasn't as aggressive as he should have been. But, I mean, you know, we know in boxing that you can be getting slapped to death in a round and then land one big punch and you get the round. So, I mean, that's been ongoing historically, so that's not a surprise. Lots of times when you watch fights, they list it down to one punch, the best punch of the round that gives the guy the edge. And in this fight, all those punches were Benavidez' way. So, I mean, I had him winning. But, I mean, at the same time, I was disappointed that the young guy wasn't being more aggressive and wasn't pushing the play more, because I thought he could have easily beat him. And in a rematch, I think he's going to kill
him. He probably will make some adjustments, and I can see where he could beat him in the rematch. But again, in terms of what went down Saturday night, he did not win, in my opinion.
I can see that.
Let's move on to what went down on Showtime, because Showtime and HBO was having cards at the same time, fights at the same time. It was just boxing and nerds, boxing geeks, treat just going back and forth between the two networks, seeing what was going to happen. Main event on the Showtime card was Amir Khan winning a 12-round unanimous decision by wide margin over Devon Alexander. Only had Alexander winning one round. Look, I was skeptical of Amir Khan. I still am to a large extent, but I got to give him his due. I go to you on this one, Sean, since you said he will win easily. He won. Like I said, only gave Alexander one round. Khan was very effective. The speed was incredible. He did a good job of whenever he would land punches, he wouldn't stay there. He would get out the way. He seems to be learning the art of true boxing, the true art of hitting and not getting hit, and of using angles. I felt not only was he the faster guy, personally, I felt he was the stronger guy. And in their complete thorough performance by Amir Khan.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not surprised. I figured he'd have his way. And like you allude to, that he was stronger or appeared stronger, a lot of times sort of pushing Devon backwards and sort of dictating everything based on you know, physical strength. That's why I thought he would be able to stop him. I figured the body work, he would have slipped one in there and dropped Devon. going to Devon's chin, I mean, he's always had a tough beard, so I didn't think that. I thought maybe he would cut him or just accumulation stoppage or land a good body shot. But, Devon's tough and he's in there to survive. And I figured that's what he was going to do, just survive. Because I didn't see anything he did that was better than what Khan does.
I ask you a follow-up question, then I'll go to you, Boxing Addict. After the bout, Khan was talking about, he's basically said that he wants Floyd Mayweather next, and he said he is the fighter with the best chance of beating Floyd Mayweather, and that includes Pacquiao. Your thoughts on Khan in a potential fight with Mayweather? I get the inkling talking prior to the show that based on style and based on Khan's physical attributes, namely his speed and his height, you feel that Khan would give Floyd Mayweather a very tough fight.
No, I think styles make fights, right? And I mean, we know Floyd's only been fighting mostly flat-footed, slow guys lately. I mean, who has he fought? Guerrero, who people say was a boxer, but he's never won a fight boxing in the last 4 or 5 years. Mostly he's had tough slugfests with guys. Ortiz, who was never a boxer. I mean, Canelo, who tries to be a boxer, but that's not really his best attribute. Khan is a boxer, and when he fights dudes that box, he wins. He loses when he fights big punchers who get hit but throw their punches in exchanges, and he gets countered and hurt, especially because he doesn't see the punch because he's too busy doing what he's doing. I mean, Khan is showing great growth. I mean, he's becoming a much better pro, holding more, like you said before, able to throw his punches and get out of the way. He's a lot more aware of that right-hand counter coming over. So, I mean, it would be an interesting fight. I mean, of course, Floyd is Floyd, so we have to see how he adjusts. But it would be interesting to see Floyd fight a boxer with speed, who's not short, who uses his legs and the jab.
I was going to go to Boxing Addict, but one last question. What do you think that Hunter, his new trainer, what do you think that he was able to get into Khan, tell Khan, that Freddie Roach and others were not able to do? What do you think he was able to get into Khan's head to make him do the things that he's doing now, that Freddie Roach and others was not able to get Khan to do? Or do you think that's just Amir Khan is simply maturing as a fighter and as a man?
I think a lot of this stuff is similar. I just think Hunter focuses on it a lot more than the offense and tries to beat into his head to be aware and to move and get off first and then get out. I'm sure the Roach was saying the same thing. It's just that Khan, his mentality is he likes to fight. So he tends to stay in there and try to get the best of a guy, and that's when he gets hurt, right? I mean, he needs to move after he dictates. I mean, he is a lead fighter. And he doesn't need to get into slugfest because that doesn't play into him. He's not a heavy-handed puncher, and he's shown that he gets hurt a lot. So, I mean, the best thing he needs to do is get off, get out.
I'll go to you on Boxing Addict. First of all, your assessment of the fight, and a second question is, while Khan is talking Floyd Mayweather, the fight I really want to see is Amir Khan fight Kell Brook in England sometime in 2015, hopefully this summer. Over in the I know it's a little bit unfair to ask you the vibe of England, but the feeling that you get, what fight is more interesting? A potential Mayweather bout, either in Las Vegas, or a British showdown with Kell Brook?
I think Kell Brook is the one that everybody wants to see. That's just a massive fight, another Wembley fight, 70,000, absolutely huge. And there's a lot of rivalry as well. We tend to get that in Britain quite a lot because it's quite a kind of sort of tribal nature here with the different pockets up north and south and stuff. And they've not liked each other for a long time. The build-up would be brilliant. So yeah, the Kell Brook fight is what everybody in Britain wants to see. But would be interested. Obviously, it'd be a great fight to see him in there with Mayweather because I agree with Sean. He's super fast. He's capable of winning 7 rounds boxing against anybody with his speed if he stays out of the way, which means he can win a fight against anybody for me. The performance was fantastic. He didn't surprise me in what he did because I knew he was capable of doing it. But I don't think we can underestimate what Virgil Hunter's done in this scenario. He's really got him thinking now. He's got him, throwing his shots and getting out of there. Constantly moving to his left. Throwing those shots in and out, and not staying in the pocket and exchanging like he was before. There were times in the fight where he reverted back to the old Khan, and he wanted to have a bit of a dust up. But he was quickly set straight by Hunter, and he sorted it out.
Absolutely. I want to. I agree with you. The Brook fight, I really want to see that. I don't know of the.
Technical difficulties. But yeah, I would like to see Thurman.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm freezing on my end. I was going to say, the fight I want to see. I don't think Khan, in spite of his wins over Collazo and Alexander, I don't think he's done quite enough to earn a Mayweather bout. That's just my opinion. With that said, I think Brook is the fight for him. Competitive fight. It's a pick-up fight as far as I'm concerned. I know people were looking at this fight about, and the aftermath said, Khan would destroy Brook. Khan would destroy Brook. He would do this and that. No, he wouldn't. Brook is underrated as a fighter. He's a big guy at that weight. He can box almost as well. He can box just as well as Khan. He may be a bit slower, but not that much slower. I think he's a little bit more sturdy, physical. He's physically more sturdier than Khan. I just think it would be a fantastic fight, and the atmosphere alone in the UK, probably in a big outdoor soccer stadium. I love it. I want to see that fight bad.
Yeah, it'd be an awesome fight. Difficult one to call, of course. But I really rate Brook. I have done since the beginning, really. And I think he feels that he's got the power to overcome Amir Khan. And I think he has. Yeah.
Me too.
Let's
KO Khan.
Oh wow, I could see it. I definitely could see it.
A KO for Khan?
No,
for Brook.
Oh, for Brook, yeah, definitely, yeah.
I could definitely
see it. Brook needs to have a homecoming fight, doesn't he, after his stabbing attack?
Is the rumors true that Brook is going to be fighting either March or April?
Yeah, it is, yeah. That they're going to have him. They're not going to put him straight into an Amir Khan fight if obviously the Mayweather thing falls through. He needs to defend his title and then have that big fight. So, and plus they have to have
defend the title and put some money, some coin in the bank.
Yeah, and the other thing is obviously in England we only get decent weather 2 months of the year, so to have it in an outdoor. To have it in an outdoor stadium like Wembley, it's got to happen, July, August, maybe June, So yeah, he would need to have a fight. He can't wait until the summer to have a big fight outdoors. So yeah, he'll sneak one in before then. Who would he fight? I think Thurman is too dangerous to have a fight to blow a multi-million-pound fight with Khan, because he could get beat, in my opinion. I don't know, Ortiz. Yeah, that'd be a good fight. Why not?
Does Ortiz deserve that fight?
Nope.
But yeah, at least he's got the name.
Nope.
He's got the name, and he would put up a performance of sorts, wouldn't he?
I'm gonna keep saying it. Nope, and I don't want to see that fight.
He's dangerous.
Look. I don't care if he is dangerous. Everybody knows when Victor Ortiz gets some mental pressure put on him, he gives it up. He quits.
Well, yeah, but you watch that fight with Maidana, and what a fight it was. They knocked each other down about 30 times.
And he still quit.
He did, but he took a hell of a beating, and I think it's.
And he still quit.
Berto.
That's
Well,
the
yeah,
only.
he's
That's
done
the
it.
only. That's the only fight that he really came to fight.
Well, I mean, Berto against
And the
Brook.
only reason he did because he knew Berto was really, really vulnerable.
Well, yeah, I thought he was doing pretty well against Mayweather until he got dropped.
Hmm.
And he kind of quit in that fight as well. Let's
Totally.
face
Yeah,
it. Mentally, he came apart.
Yeah.
yeah, he's got some issues there, but I don't know. Who do you think Khan should maybe go in with?
Brook,
I don't know who the mandatory is or who the number one contender is.
Brook Berto.
So, Berto would be a good fight. Anybody in the lower half of the top 10 would do for me. And then summer 2015, Brooke Khan, let's do it.
Guerrero.
Guerrero, yeah, he spanked Guerrero all over the ring.
Yeah, but Guerrero's got a good name. Hasn't done anything since the big Floyd fight.
What about Brandon Rios?
That's
Well,
easy work. That's
Rios
easy work.
do it. Alvarado.
Yeah, that's right. He's fighting Alvarado. Even if he wasn't fighting, that would be easy work for Brooke. Easy work.
Yeah. What about Bizier, the Canadian?
If it was in Canada, but in the UK, I don't know if that's going to make much of an impact. A guy like Guerrero and Berto or Ortiz, at least they got name value, and all three of them are on their way out.
Yeah. It depends how they look at it. I think they're going to look at it as a stay busy fight. I don't think they're going to want anybody too dangerous to put that
So,
fight in jeopardy, you know.
take Guerrero, he has no power.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's move on and talk about really the main undercard bout. Keith Thurman fighting Leonard Bundu. Thurman won by 12-round decision, unanimous decision. He won every round of all the cards. Scored a knockdown in round 1 via a left hand, I believe it was. And I'll go to you on this one, Sean. And we were talking about this live chat. Even though Thurman won, I personally was disappointed in his performance. He did not live up to his talk. I wonder if he was hurt or not. I don't know. If not, it makes me even more disappointed because he showed, even though he won, he showed a guy who's not complete, who's not fully rounded out because there were opportunities early in that bout where he really could have taken, he could have finished Bundu and he didn't. And as the fight went along, he wasn't aggressive enough. He did too much pot shotting. He did too much moving, too much boxing. He should have settled down, fought in a tight circle, used the jab, worked the combinations to this guy. And he did because Bundu, he was aggressive, but he wasn't doing anything. There were opportunities for Thurman to land punches to the head and the body, to do more work, to be more impressive. And to me, he just wasn't, in spite of the fact that he was given all the rounds on the cards.
Yeah, I
Go
mean,
ahead. Yeah.
you can give him props because he showed good boxing skill and he boxed and moved for 12 rounds and won an easy decision. But is that what he's marketing himself as?
No, he's marketing himself as a knockout guy.
Is that what he's telling everybody? He's calling out everyone, and he's saying that, one time. So then it's not to be critical of his performance. He was good, but the problem is he didn't look like he ever pushed to be great. I mean, Bundu pressured him, but pressured him without throwing punches, only pressured him with awkward movement. And at no time did he really put pressure on Bundu to try to back Bundu up where he would have to play and where he would be able to hurt him and be able to use his power and make an exciting fight. And then him and a lot of his fans are bent out of shape because people booed. Well, people went to watch him because he knocks guys out.
And my question is, where were the feints? There were opportunities where he could have used feints to open Bundu up to land shots. He didn't really do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think people should be upset because he's being criticized. He's at that level now where people are talking about him fighting, everybody. Floyd, Manny, Bradley,
Khan.
If you're going to fight these guys and sell yourself as this next great fighter to take over the 147 after the other guys leave, then you at least need to look like you're doing something, that you're pushing, not just satisfied with a victory. you know, not to be critical because I know you love him, but like winning like via Rigo. You know, I won the fight. I won easy. I never got hit. I got the decision. Okay, time to go home. Well, if you fight like that, you're not going to have all the support and all the money behind you. People are pushing him because he has KO power. In all his other fights, he showed that he can drop guys and finish them. In this fight, he dropped a guy and he didn't even go for a finish.
See,
And
the difference is that Rigo is looked at as a brilliant boxer. Thurman is looked at as a guy who has one punch power, who can take you out whenever he feels like it.
yeah, but we know Rigo has huge power too. That's why people are critical of him because he doesn't use it
I'm just talking about the perception of him. He's not, even though he has power, he's not perceived as a power puncher in the same way that Thurman is.
Yeah, and because of that, he's not marketable. Whereas Thurman has the power and is perceived as having it and is marketable. But by doing this, then he's upset because people are critical of his performance. Because he looked like his arm was sore. He looked like he was just coasting to get a victory and not pushing to get a win, like impressively. And I thought maybe because his shoulder was still bothering him. But afterwards he said that's not the case. And I mean, fine, even if it was, you know, we don't really want to hear him say it because excuses come too easy. So if he goes and fixes it, and that's really the issue, that's understandable. And we will see with this next fight what happens. I mean, I'm not quick to throw him under the bus because everyone has a performance that isn't what people would consider their best. So we will see what he does. He's been off for a long time. This is his first fight back against an awkward fighter. So let's see what he does in his next fight.
I go to you on this one, Boxing Addict. If you saw the fight, what did you think of Thurman's performance? And Sean is talking about the next fight, where it's anticipated he's going to fight Maidana next sometime in early 2015.
Yeah, I disagree with a lot.
Thoughts on the potential about Thurman and Maidana?
Yeah, Thurman and Maidana would be a great fight. Actually, I'd like to see that. But going back to the, the fight with Bundu, I think we have to give Bundu some credit because I believe what happened was Thurman went in there with the intention of stopping him, but he realised quite quickly that Bundu is super awkward. He's switch hitting all the time, changing to southpaw, coming back. And there were the odd occasions where Bundu would get him up against the ropes and he'd land a few body shots. And I think Thurman realised that, this guy isn't to be played with, actually. If I get into a scrap with him and try and throw a big punch and it doesn't come off, I could get caught, I could get worn down. And I think he boxed really effectively. And, I've touched on this before. I hate it when fans are booing. I think it's ridiculous. I thought he boxed really, really well against this really awkward customer. And I think Bundu did himself proud. He couldn't go totally gung ho because Thurman probably would have ended up taking him out. But he put up a good performance, and I rate Thurman. I think it's a load of rubbish what people are talking at the moment, and giving him grief for not knocking the guy out. This is world level boxing, and there's a bit of an echo on there.
Let me mute and you go on and see if it's on my end. Go ahead, Addict.
Yeah, so he gave it a really good go. I know people are being upset with Thurman because he should have been, going for that knockout, but for me it was a great performance, and now we can move on to bigger, better things. And just go from there.
Yeah, I think the echo may be on Sean's end. Let's move on and talk about the news segment. There's only one bit of news I want to focus on, and the fight has been rumored for a few weeks now. It's official. It's going to happen. Bermane Stiverne will be defending his heavyweight title against Deontay Wilder January 17th of 2015. It's going to be explosive start to 2016. I'm gonna go to Attic first. Mute your mic, Sean. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting start to 2015. I'm really looking forward to this fight. Your thoughts on the upcoming bout between Stiverne and Deontay Wilder? This to you, Attic.
Okay. Yeah, really excited about this fight. The heavyweight division's really hotting up, isn't it? So we're going to see some great fights this year. I personally believe Stiverne should win the fight, but I'm kind of hoping that Wilder wins the fight because I want to see Wilder and Fury get it on. But Stiverne is a very good boxer. He's very cute and he's got the power. So I would have to go with Stiverne in that fight. But I'm just glad it's starting to kick off and these fights are happening.
Okay, I'm going to you on this one, Sean. So unmute your mic. From your knowledge of the sport, mute your mic. Then you can answer after I finish giving you a question, Sean. Given your insight and the way you follow sites and whatnot and certain boxes and whatever, what do you think was the key that finally got this fight signed? And as well as your thoughts on this upcoming bout. And I'm saying it right now, whoever wins is going to be a knockout. I just don't see a decision.
I don't know if it was ever in doubt that this fight was going to happen. It was just a matter of the money being right, I think, especially for Stiverne's end. I think he was really, because he is the name guy, he has the title, I think he was just making sure he was getting the money he thought he deserved. Yeah, I sort of think Wilder is going to win. I mean, Stiverne showed that he's a slow starter and that he gets hit early. And against a guy like Wilder, that might just be too late. Of course, Wilder's chin has been questioned, especially his early fights, like in amateurs and whatnot. So he's also vulnerable. But I mean, as a pro, he hasn't really hit the canvas, and he's shown that he could avoid that. So we will see. I think he will stop Stiverne within 3 rounds.
Joining us live right now. Mute your mic right quick, Sean. Joining us live right now is Gail Falkenthal from Falcon Valley Group in California. How you doing, Gail?
I'm doing great, gentlemen. How are you?
We're doing good. We're doing good. We're talking right now about the news that Bermane Stiverne and Deontay Wilder will fight in January 17, 2015 to be exact. Your thoughts on this bout, as I was mentioning to Sean and Boxing Addict. To me, I see no other way of this fight ending other than knockout. I just see TNT.
I agree with you. You know, when you know, 2 big objects like that hurl themselves at each other, it's bound to happen. And I agree with the comments I heard there at the tail end as I joined that I think Wilder will show himself to be the victor in this one. Speed kills in boxing. Speed is your friend. And I think Wilder's got the speed to beat Stiverne. They both have the power, but Wilder's got the speed. And when you have a height advantage, especially in the bigger weight classes, that's also not to be ignored.
Do you think that Wilder leaves himself open a little bit too much? I'm not going to make a prediction. I'll wait until the fight gets here.
He can. I think that he's had so little competition to date in his last few fights. I saw him in August here in California at StubHub. Admittedly, he was facing one of those opponents who, you know, you got down the street from the dry cleaners or the liquor store from behind the counter, you know. But I think he has perhaps been a little vulnerable because he can afford to be. This time, he'll hopefully be smart enough to prepare for that. I think if anything he's got to watch out for, it's not a headshot, it's the body shots.
Yes.
And you know, you chop at the trunk and the tree's going to fall. He can't let that happen.
I want to apologize beforehand, Gail. I'm freezing a little bit on my end, so if you hear me start a question and not complete it, I'm sorry. I want to move on to have a bit of a roundtable to kind of recap 2014. I just throw out some quick questions. Fight of the year, your opinions on, your thoughts on fight of the year, fighter of the year, knockout of the year, and upset of the year and whatnot. And since you're on with us live, Gil, it was a lot of discussion, particularly over the past week, especially following Terence Crawford's win over Beltran, that he is deserving for fighter of the year in 2014. Others were saying Triple G, Kovalev, even Roman Gonzalez, the flyweight. Your thoughts, and you can follow up Sean in Boxing Addict. Your thoughts on the fighter of the year in 2014?
It's a short list this year compared to last year, where I had a little more trouble picking a winner. Last year, ironically, I picked Adonis Stevenson. It was a close call. I did not pick Gennady Golovkin, although I am a big fan personally. Last year, still waiting for him to fight someone of his quality. You know, I think we're finding out there might not be anybody of his quality, but I think a fighter of the year designation for him is still premature. So you really are left with Gonzalez. Is not a bad call. But honestly, I think it boils down to either Sergey Kovalev or Terence Crawford. And I think, given, interestingly enough, that the fighter of the year last year came from the light heavyweight division, and we have somebody who's in effect deposed him, that's going to give him the edge for me against a very tough Terence Crawford, who had a couple of spectacular fights and is much hyped by his network, but I'd like to see him perhaps notch one more big win before I'm ready to give it to Crawford. Kovalev's going to be my choice.
Your thoughts, Sean?
My choice is Roman Gonzalez. Moved up from his weight as champion to the bigger division. Fought who was considered the top guy at that weight. Stopped him. Of course, had 2 build-up fights just to get comfortable at that weight, and then of course fought a strong contender in his first defense of the weight. So 4 times this year he went on the road to fight in Japan for the victory. I know some people say he fights out of Japan, but I mean, he's not Japanese. He fought a Japanese guy in Japan, so it's on the road. And yeah, I thought he did enough, and he is building his brand.
KBC Live will love you right now, because Roman Gonzalez is arguably her favorite fighter right now. She loves the dude, and I can see why, because people will say, well, look at the competition and whatnot. I can see that to a certain degree, but when you look at Gonzalez, and when you look at people who say that, often don't have an understanding of the lightweight divisions. Quite honestly, let's be real about it. A lot of them really don't watch the flyweight division, the junior flyweight divisions and whatnot. They don't watch the little guys, so it's easy to be that dismissive. So I can definitely see the argument. I'm tending to lean towards Gonzalez, but I'm thinking Kovalev, because he was in much more higher profile bouts, and the way he kind of had his way with Hopkins, especially, he's going to get the nod. He's going to be awarded the Fighter of the Year in 2014. Boxing Addict, your thoughts. Who do you think is the Fighter of the Year in 2014?
Well, I agree. It's got to be between one of those 3. Gonzalez has had 4 fights this year. I think he's knocked out probably 7 or 8 of his last opponents at the top level, so you've got to give him huge credit.
And he's done so moving up in weight.
Of course. So probably Gonzalez. I was torn initially between Kovalev and Crawford. I looked at who they'd fought, and I personally leant slightly towards Crawford, just because he came over to Britain and took the title, and then he had two really good fights against decent opponents. So, sort of weighing them up, I had Crawford slightly above Kovalev. But having said that, I would go with Gonzalez.
Your thoughts on the anybody can chime in. Your pick as the fight of the year in 2014. And anybody can chime in.
Oof, my fight of the year, only because I went to it, was Froch Groves. But it wasn't a great fight. But there you go.
Just the atmosphere and whatnot.
Yeah, the whole build up and everything. It's very rare that we get fights like that. Certainly in Britain. So for me, that was the fight of the year.
You know, to me, it was just a tough call. There weren't real obvious candidates. It is. You do have a bias if you were there in person, that's for sure. And I think I'd have to give the nod to Nicholas Walters and Nonito Donaire. I was there. There was something about the StubHub venue in Carson, California. It's been the site of the last 3 fights of the year for most American writers. There's just something about that venue. It seats 8,500 people, and it makes magic every time. And there have been just some dynamite fights there. A fight earlier this year that was a little bit overlooked because it was sort of a second-tier fight that was also just a barn burner of a fight was Robert Guerrero's comeback after losing to Mayweather against Kamagai. Absolutely sensational fight, crazy good fight. But I'm going to give it to Walters. It was a real coming out party for him. The fans got amazingly behind him, despite the huge number of Filipino fans there for Donaire. And he's got a great year ahead of him.
I'll give my decision. My thoughts. Look, I didn't give Terrence Crawford the fighter of the year, but I will give him his win over Gamboa as my favorite fight of the year in 2014. Coming out party for him. Gamboa, he came out hot early. He gave Crawford problems early, but kudos to Crawford. I love the way he adjusted. The power, the speed. It was exciting throughout, and just when he was starting to really, really dominate, Gamboa came back to hurt Crawford, and then Crawford rebounded and hurt him and finished him off. In that atmosphere, in his real first showcase performance on HBO, he shone through like a true champ, and he showed himself to be a potential star. So for me, Crawford, Gamboa, that's my personal fight of the year in 2014. I know there are probably better fights out there, but for me, that's my favorite. Sean?
You stole my thunder, man. Yeah. I was totally going to say that fight because that fight is two legitimate guys. I mean, no one can criticize Gamboa, except for his not having enough fights to stay busy. But as far as talent, power, speed, he's a tough fight, man. And Crawford moving up, having that big atmosphere after winning his belt, defending against a guy like him, going back and forth, showing adjustments, being able to stop a guy who, in the past has shown a shaky chin but has never been stopped. He stepped it up and showed that he is pushing to that elite level. And it was a great victory for him. And, as far as fight of the year, I totally give him that. And off that fight alone, he is in contention for fighter of the year.
Hard for me to pick upset of the year, so I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Not the upset of the year, but the KO of the year. So I'm going to leave it up to you, lady and gents. Your thoughts on the knockout of the year?
Boy, I love a good knockout. Who doesn't? We did have some good ones this year. I'd say on my short list, I'd have to have Golovkin's knockout of Daniel Geale, which was really a counter shot knockout, a super knockout. But I'll tell you, this might come as a surprise, but for sheer theatricality of it, I'm going to give it to Andy Lee over John Jackson earlier this summer.
Nice.
Just about out of that fight. It was a Hail Mary pass of boxing for a 90-yard touchdown. It was astonishing. And he almost did exactly the same thing, except that he wasn't in trouble this time against Korobov. He had 2 of the best single rounds of the year, all year. A lot of the other rounds he fought weren't all that great, but it doesn't matter. He won both those fights. It puts a smile on my face every time I think about it. Got to give it to Andy Lee.
Your thoughts at it?
Yeah, Andy Lee again, and his punch from the gods. Yeah, it was a great knockout. I mean, he was losing that fight badly at the time, wasn't he? So, yeah, there was drama in that. I thought Klitschko's knockout of Pulev was quite dramatic.
Another good choice. Another good choice. Solid choice.
Amen.
And,
Good choice.
yeah, and Povetkin against Char, I think it was quite a brutal knockout. I'm going to have, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? Yeah, Froch.
You're forgiven.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm showing my bias again, but I've got to give it to him, haven't I? He's only fought once this year, so.
Your loyalty is admirable.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and it was a great knockout as well.
Yeah, absolutely was.
I mean, the way that Groves went down, and for a few seconds he was, up there, he didn't know where he was. So, obviously a dramatic fight and everything else. So, but one of the cleanest knockouts I thought was Walters against, who did he fight? Darchinian.
Oh, Darchinian.
Darchinian.
That was a good knockout. Was that this year?
Yes,
I'd
it
have
was.
to check. Yeah, early.
That was quite a good knockout. Yeah.
It was earlier this year in Macau.
Yeah, good knockout. But yeah, there's been quite a few good ones this year, but I'd have to go with my man.
KO of the year, Sean, speak on it.
Again, that's what happens when you go last. I also think Froch against Groves. I mean, coming into the rematch, lots of push, people thinking that Groves got sort of ripped off and screwed the first fight with a quick stoppage, and then that fight also being very competitive early on, and then boom, right hands, fight's over, done. I thought it was a great sort of exclamation point for Froch's career.
Since you're gonna go last, Sean, I'm gonna ask you to go first on this. I'm gonna skip upset of the year. I'm gonna go to what three fights not named Mayweather and Pacquiao would you like to see in 2015?
Canelo Cotto, but I mean that sort of looks like a sure thing. But following that up, I'd like to see the winner fight GGG. So Canelo GGG at 160. Stevenson against Kovalev, 175. And rematch, Estrada against Roman Gonzalez. Boom, boom, boom.
Go ahead. Gail.
I don't think it'll happen, but I'd love to see Crawford and Danny Garcia. A second endorsement all the way for Cotto Canelo, and the winner fights Triple G. I'd also like to see Triple G fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. There'd be a lot of theater around that, especially if they do it in Los Angeles in front of a predominantly Mexican crowd. And surprisingly enough, I think you'd see a lot of that crowd supporting Triple G. His marketing push to the Mexican fan has been nothing short of brilliant. And I'd like to see those two guys bang at it. Although it'd have to be a catchweight because there is no way Chavez Jr. is going to make 160. It's not going to happen. I'd like to see Stevenson and Kovalev, assuming Stevenson has a good outing tomorrow night. And I'll stop there, but I'm greedy. My wish list goes on and on and on.
Boxing addict, your three fights you want to see, and not Pacquiao and Mayweather?
Kovalev Stevenson, it's got to be top of the list for me. That's a fight that's got to happen this year. Yeah, hopefully we're going to see fights like obviously Alvarez and Cotto. That looks like it's going to happen. I'm hoping Froch Chavez is signed in the next few weeks. I want to see Froch Golovkin more than I want to see Chavez Golovkin, because I don't think Chavez is competitive, to be honest. I think Froch will destroy him. And I would like to see probably, I don't know, Vargas against Provodnikov as a real sort of war fight. I think that would be a great fight. Crawford Garcia, that's another one. Walters, Lomachenko. That would be a great fight.
Okay, my three. First and foremost, I want to see the rematch between Roman Gonzalez and Juan Francisco Estrada. Two high level, as far as I'm concerned, top 15 pound for pound guys in their primes. The first fight was one of the fights of the year in 2012. Both fighters have improved. It was good before. I think it will be great now. So, Sean, he stole my thunder with that. That's why I said, damn. Excuse me, I'm lagging again. I'm sorry. I want to see Brook and Khan go to war, outdoor stadium, summer 2015. As I said earlier, you weren't here earlier, Gil. I think it's a pick'em fight. For folks who are saying that Khan would blow Brook out after his performance over Alexander, I think they're crazy. Brook could very well stop Khan. And lastly, I agree with Attic here. I think that Froch and Triple G would be one hell of a fight. Over there, I would prefer it over there because it would get a bigger crowd, but it will be for the first time that Triple G will fight a guy who's at his level or maybe slightly above his level. I think Carl Froch, with his height, his reach, his power, and his awkward style, would give Triple G I'll go to you on this one, Gail, and let you finish up the last question. Our previous question was, what fights do you want to see that's not Mayweather and Pacquiao? Well, this week, all the talk has been a potential Mayweather and Pacquiao bout. In 2015, Mayweather, in an interview last week, said he wants it May 2nd. There's been back and forth. Sean will give us some news, kind of breaking news, if you will, on that fight. But I will ask you, Gail, and you can follow up Attic, and then you can finish off Sean. Do you think we will finally see Floyd Mayweather fight Manny Pacquiao in 2015?
I'll make it quick. No, not a chance. Never. Not going to happen.
Do tell. Why?
I think Mayweather doesn't want to see that all on his record disappear. He doesn't need the money. I don't think he wants to risk it. I think the risk-reward ratio for him isn't good enough. I think he's going to find every excuse in the book not to let it happen. I can't say I horribly blame him.
Even though, to me, Mayweather has a style that's suitable that could really beat Pacquiao.
I think that the risk is just simply too great for him. He can leave with his legacy intact without ever having had to prove it. I think even if he beat Pacquiao, he could beat him and look bad, and that would still be a problem. He doesn't want to go out that way, and I'm not sure I don't think we're gonna see it. I also don't think we're gonna see him fight on May 2nd. He's going to need to move because Cotto Canelo is going to grab that Cinco de Mayo weekend for sure. He is going to have to adjust, much as he and Showtime are going to hate that. They do not. I don't think they want to split the evening. And you know, if he's smart, one thing I think would be worth the risk-reward ratio for him is to fight Khan at Wembley. And that would be a hell of a way for him to go out. He doesn't fight outside the United States. That'd be in front of a crowd of 80,000 people that I think that he could shut up. And that would be good enough for him.
I personally have to disagree. I think he has to fight Pacquiao for his legacy's sake. Folks are not going to buy him going undefeated, even if he fights Khan in Wembley, for instance. Folks are not going to accept him in his career without fighting Pacquiao, despite his accolades.
I think you're right as far as the fans are concerned. I think to Mayweather, it's the numbers that matter to him. I think that's a tactical mistake on his part, but I think that's the way he feels.
Boxing Addict, your thoughts on Mayweather Pacquiao? Will it finally happen in 2015?
Will it happen? Probably not. I don't think Floyd has ever wanted to fight. Like Gale says, he wants to keep his own intact. He knows that Pacquiao causes him massive problems. It can't. For me, it can't be to do. It can't be the money now. Surely it's not the money. He's made all his money. Okay, there are a few 100 million out there in the pot or whatever, but
200 to be exactly.
Yeah, it's if Pacquiao was Maidana, he'd have fought him for less money, wouldn't he? So it's not. It's the fact that he doesn't want to face him and he doesn't want to lose his own. But I agree with you, Michael. I think his legacy is harmed if he doesn't fight him. It's like the Joe Calzaghe question. He's got that O, and there's no doubt fantastic talent, fantastic fighter. But there were issues of him maybe not fighting the best Americans in the prime and that sort of thing, and it's always haunted him a little bit. But for Floyd, it's on an even bigger level because he's not fought the guy, and the guy is Manny Pacquiao, alongside Mayweather, of course. But it has to happen this year for the fans, for boxing as well. I mean, this is a fight that will bring in thousands, possibly millions of boxing fans around the world, and really grow the sport as well. So I think he owes it to the fans personally to offer this fight.
I go to you on this one, Sean. Mayweather said Pacquiao responded to this video. Mute your mic right quick, Sean. Pacquiao had a video kind of mocking Ford, trolling Ford to be exactly. There was an interview with Bob Arum, which he said that he doesn't want the fight to happen May 2nd. There may have been a ploy on Arum's part. You got a bit of breaking news. That's why I chose to let you go last. You have a bit of breaking news on the fight and whether it will happen. Give your insight, because I know you're doing some searching. Give your insight of what may go down.
Well, I mean, Floyd on Showtime came out and he finally stepped up and called Manny out, but at the same time he made 3 excuses of why the fight couldn't happen. Number 1, no HBO involvement. Number 2, Manny wasn't going to get $40 million that he offered last time. And number 3, the fight was May 2nd. Even though everybody knows that Canelo and Cotto have been talking about that date, and from what everybody says, it looks like it's ready to be done. I was listening to Thunderdome Boxing, and he was referring to a independent newspaper in New York where the writer, I can't remember his name, was talking about how a lot of this they think was a ploy to set up Mayweather to commit to the May 2nd fight, thinking that the date was already booked. But apparently Manny and Arum have agreed and came out and said, yeah, for sure, May 2nd, that's cool, no problem. And I mean, in the long game, you can see why it wouldn't be a big deal. I mean, Canelo wants that day, but at the same time, if they fought in Brooklyn on Puerto Rican Independence Day, it would also be a huge day for a Canelo-Cotto fight. I mean, and I can't see why that wouldn't push 1.5 million. And, I mean, of course, the Manny-Floyd fight, it would sell any day. It would sell on Christmas. But, if Floyd is going to use that as a ploy to get out of the fight, we will see what happens. He threw that date out there now, and if Manny and Arum say okay, then it's just going to make him really look like he's ducking the fight. And, with all the work he's been doing with interviews and everything else, trying to push the blame on Arum, that probably would be a couple steps back for him.
I will say this. Anybody who knows me knows I've been critical of Floyd, particularly outside the ring. Not as much inside the ring, but in terms of outside the ring, when he acts and conducts. Okay, I'm back. I'm freezing. I was going to say I'm gonna be contrarian here, even though I've been critical of Mayweather more for the way he acts outside the ring and some of the things he says and does. I'm going to be contrarian here and say the fight does happen. Finally. I don't know why. I don't know how. But I just think that the public pressure is too much on all parties aside. Arum, Heyman, Mayweather, Pacquiao. I think things that may force all parties involved to finally come together like some adults. And this fight gets made. I don't know if it's going to be in May. I don't know if it'll be pushed back eventually to September. But I think the fight will happen. Am I wrong?
I think the fight could happen because of the pressure. I think it's really getting on top for Floyd now, which is why he came out and gave that interview on Showtime, because he's catching a lot of grief now over this, and he had to come out and say something. And I agree with Sean. He was
I say that because people talk about this kind of fight with Khan. Folks are not going to accept the Khan fight this time. Too much backlash.
I don't know. I mean, Gail was probably right in saying that a huge fight at Wembley would get the fans up for it. They'd get him a little bit back on. Yeah, they'd get the fans a bit more back on side with Mayweather because he's going out of his comfort zone. He's coming to England and he's fighting a really good fighter. But the people who don't care so much for Khan and the people who, have been wanting this Pacquiao fight for so many years are still going to be disappointed, and they're still going to, give Mayweather some grief over it, and rightly so.
Anybody want to chime in before we try to talk about the fights that's going to close out the year and end the show?
No, let's move on.
All right, then. Let's move on to talk about fights that's going to happen to close out the year. First fight we're going to talk about is Adonis Stevenson, who will be fighting tomorrow night on Showtime in Quebec City. He's going to be fighting a fighter by the name of Sukowski. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Defending his WBC belt. I'll go to you on this one, Sean, if you're still there. Don't know much about his opponent. If you've seen him, give some insight on the kind of guy Stevenson's defending the title against. What do you?
I have no idea who his opponent is. I think it's just another one of those contender type of fights to make him look good, give him a KO, and sort of do damage control after being inactive last year and giving up the lead to Kovalev. So, I mean, he gave up the Hopkins fight. He ran away from the Kovalev fight. He needs to sort of look good and see if he can get a Kovalev fight this year. So I think this is just a look good fight for him, and I think he should easily win. He should.
Your thoughts, Gail?
Stevenson's opponent, interesting. This is his first fight outside either Russia or Germany. His last loss several years ago was to a guy named Cornelius White. Okay, so why do we care about that? Cornelius White beat Sukowski. Cornelius White, in turn, got absolutely slaughtered by Sergey Kovalev.
That's right.
You find the chain there. It doesn't speak all that well for the Russian. He's a uninspiring sort of average fighter. Doesn't mean he's horrible. Doesn't mean he's the guy from the dry cleaners. But he's probably not much of a notch above that. When we see these guys come in from Eastern Europe who've never had an appearance anywhere else, that's sometimes a bit suspect. However, having said all that, Stevenson still needs a good, showy win. He can't do it by decision. He sure as heck can't do it by split decision. He needs a definitive victory, or all the gains he made in 2013 will have gone down the drain, more or less, in 2014. And it's really a shame. He had a spectacular year. Once again, a guy takes advice from Al Heyman and and he starts heading down a very dangerous path, looking at money rather than reputation. Big problem. So he's got to have a big win tomorrow night.
Quickly, your thoughts on this fight, Adam?
Yeah, it's a terrible fight, isn't it? I mean, this guy isn't decent at all, really. I was looking at who he's fought, and he's fought nobody. I think in his last fight, he fought somebody called Joey Vegas, which says it all. He's, this guy's, that was a guy from Africa. He's lost, I don't know, 4 of his last 5 fights or something. And how this guy's got a shot at the World Championship, I've got no idea. But it's a stay busy fight, like Gail was saying. It's an Al Heyman fight, isn't it? Keep him busy, make him some money, stay away from Kovalev. But he better do something this year. Because he did have a great 2013, and he was probably the top man in boxing for me. He'd done so well. But he's really let himself down this year, so let's hope he gets that big fight with Kovalev next year.
Okay, 3 big cards that's going down in Japan on the last 2 days of the year, on the 30th and the 31st. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you about a particular fight on those 3 cards. I'll go to you on this one, Gail. And we're going into our territory here. We're going into the smaller guys, the smaller weight fighters. On the 30th in Tokyo, Naoya Inoue, who's been one of the up-and-coming stars in boxing, as far as I'm concerned. I think he's the best young fighter in the world, regardless of weight. He's going to be moving up 2 divisions. He won the junior flyweight belt. He's moving all the way up to 115 pounds to fight Omar Navarez. Bold move by Inoue. I personally think he's ready for the challenge because he's so talented, and because Navarez is getting a little bit long in the tooth. Am I wrong here? Am I right here about Inoue, or do you think he's biting off a little bit more than he can chew here?
I think you're right, and I do think he's biting off a lot. I think he will rise to the occasion. I think he's a guy that likes to be tested. I admire that. I like a guy who takes that kind of risk, big reward, and I think he'll get it. I think the world of him. And any boxing writer or boxing journalist who's already picked their fight of the year without having seen that one, bad idea. Even though we all just did, but yeah.
Yeah. Again, if you've seen Inoue, for those who hasn't, I've talked about him numerous times on the show. He reminds me of lightweight Shane Mosley in terms of how he fights, in terms of his combination of speed, power, and athleticism. There is not one thing Inoue really cannot do as a fighter. I mean, he's just that damn good for someone so young. I'm going to go to you on this one, Adam, because Sean had to leave those. As to those who know, Sean.
Yeah, I know you're a huge fan of Inoue, and I went back and watched one of his fights, actually, and he is super slick, isn't he? And
excuse me, I'm freezing again. Excuse me. I'll give you this fight. Guillermo Rigondeaux, junior featherweight king. He really hasn't had a fight lately. He's going to be fighting in Japan against a fighter by the name of Amagasa. Thoughts on Rigondeaux deciding to go to Japan to defend his belt?
I think it's great. Rigondeaux, obviously, we want to see in there with the best in his division. I want to see him in there with Frampton and Quigg and some of the other guys, but I think it's a good move. Japan is obviously really big on boxing, and it gets forgotten a lot by the Western world, I think. But there's big fights out there at those weights, and there's good fighters. So I think it's really good for him to go out there and have a fight. But we want to see him in these unification fights, don't we, this year?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a move he kind of had to make. He needs to get in the ring to stay busy. And it's a good move because Japan, as anybody knows who follows the lightweight division, they shut out a lot of coin for their fighters. I mean, if you want to make some real good money, Japan is one of the places you can go. I mean, ask Roman Gonzalez. I'll ask you, Gail, about 2 fights that's happening on those 3 cards. Jorge Linares won a featherweight title, won the junior lightweight title. fought for the lightweight title. He lost to DeMarco in an exciting fight. Back on the comeback trail, fighting for a vacant belt, vacated by oh gosh, what's the guy who vacated the lightweight belt recently? WBC version. Figueroa, Omar Figueroa. Well, Linares is fighting for that vacant belt. I think that Linares, with Terence Crawford moving up in weight, I may be wrong here, but to me, I think Linares is one of the more talented fighters in the world. I think should he win, he has a chance to become the lightweight in the world, despite his issues with his chin. Talk about that fight, and talk about Takashi Uchiyama. Many fighters hadn't seen him. I have. I personally think he's the best junior light. Thoughts on Linares and his upcoming bout, as well as your thoughts on Takashi Uchiyama.
I like Linares. You know, I always like aggressive fighters like he is. He's smart to go to Japan as well. It's a hotbed of fans of the lighter weight classes, so smart to get in front of them because it's true that Americans don't always give them the props they deserve.
Well, actually, that's where in Japan is where Linares made his name. He fought. Right. He moved there from Venezuela early in his career. He made a name for himself fighting over in Japan. Yeah, and I think, however, once he bumps up against guys like Crawford, his problems will show. He's just that slight notch of skill level down. I don't think he's as adjustable, flexible as Crawford is, which is a huge asset for Crawford and for any boxer. In fact, that going back to our earlier discussion, that's part of the reason I've kind of given the nod as Fighter of the Year to Kovalev. Because he showed us so many more tools and skills against Bernard Hopkins than we all thought he had. We didn't know the guy could box. We didn't know he could cut off the ring. He did. So if you're a little shy of tools in the toolkit, you know, and you face a guy like Crawford who's extremely creative in the ring, yeah, I think that his flaws will come out. But he should have a good outing this at the end of the year. I was mentioning Linares because I think with Crawford moving up, I think Linares has a chance to become the top dog at 135. If he stays there, yeah, I think it's a possibility. I think he'll move up though. We'll see what happens. I'm excited about a lot of the shuffling going on in some of the lower weight classes to create some interesting new matchups. You know, as these guys get a little older, you know, they naturally move up in weight class. You know, I mean, that's going to happen. That nature takes its course, and I think that's nothing but good for the sport. Your impressions of Uchiyama, have you seen him fight? And if so, what are your thoughts about him? Well, first of all, it kills me that here in the United States, if we want to see these really slick, great, entertaining Japanese fighters, you know, we've got to go to YouTube. But thank God we do have YouTube because we can stream. Yeah, or stream it. Yeah, it's not made easy for us. Another exciting guy I'd like to see get a little more notoriety. You know, and it is amazing how Japan seems to every year churn out one after another of these entertaining, skilled fighters with speed and with power. He's won more of them. His could be the fight of the year for all we know. We'll wait and see. I'm kind of entertained about the Rigondeaux fight. On the one hand, I agree with you. It's so smart for him to get in front of the Japanese audience. He needed a fight. It was there. Why not? He'll earn a nice paycheck. But the fact is, HBO and the American promotional machine behind him have had a really rough time making anyone interested in Rigondeaux. The fans just have said no thanks. They appreciate how skilled he is, but American fans do not want to watch a tactical fighter like that. They just don't.
Yeah, and it comes down to the finances as well, doesn't it? So people don't want to fight Rigondeaux because they're probably going to lose, and they're not going to earn a lot of money doing it. Which is why people like Frampton and Santa Cruz and Quigg are staying away from him, really, because it's the risk-reward thing again, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, to me, it's just sad. It's just a bit sad that American fans hadn't really caught on to this guy. Whitaker was very much the same way, but he's had opportunities to fight on. He had a contract with HBO. I think the fact that he's not American may have a role to do with it, the fact he doesn't speak the language. But you're right. For some reason or another, there are many I can really speculate on, but he just hasn't caught on with the American audience. And it's sad, again, because outside of Floyd, well, put it this way, he, talent-wise, skill-wise, he is legitimately a contemporary great fighter. And I will go so far as to say there are some. Mayweather is considered the best pound-for-pound guy in the world, but there are some things that Ricky Diao does in that ring that exceeds even what Mayweather does. I really believe that, but yet the powers that be, he just cannot catch on with them. He just can't.
Well, truthfully, the powers that be are behind him. HBO has been very much behind him and tried. People interested. The fans are just simply saying, no thank you, we'll move on to the next item in the boxing buffet.
I push back against that, Gail, because I wrote a blog about this last year. When Arum, following the Donaire bout, when Arum mentioned Rigging Diao to HBO, HBO basically gave him the middle finger, said we don't want to do anything to do with him. Folks caught on to that. There was a bit of an uproar on social media about it. Ricky Diao, they decided to air his next bout against Abeko. Ricky Diao didn't do any favors the way he performed against Abeko. He was dominant, but he was rather boring. But I push back against how the networks have really wanted Ricky Diao there, because I know for a fact that HBO in particular, they were not really fond of that guy. They really weren't.
Well, you give HBO 2 fights in a row that are to the fans snoozers, and they're in business. I mean, they're in business to draw eyeballs and make money, and when they can't do it, they're going to have to move on.
Okay, excuse me, I'm sorry. I was going to say the reason I was saying it because even though Stinker may be against Donaire, but that was the most dominant performance of 2013. And for them to just basically turn their nose at Ricky Diao and give him the middle finger like that, that was disturbing.
Well, and remember also at stake there, HBO had named Donaire their fighter of the year. They had put a tremendous amount of their promotional effort and dime behind Donaire, and he imploded on them at the hands of Rigondeaux. And they didn't like that too much. Not that it was his fault. Donaire fell prey, I think, to the classic lack of focus that a guy gets when he gets to be at that level and has other stuff starting to go on, and he doesn't realize how hard it is to keep all those balls in the air. And unfortunately, his attempt at a comeback this summer wasn't too successful. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. I like Nonito. I like what he stands for. He's very fan friendly. He's super outside the ring with the public, but he's in a world of hurt right now.
Yeah, I feel like we're leaving boxing addict out of the discussion here. Back to the subject at hand. Jorge Linares, have your thoughts on him fighting for the vacant belt, and have you seen Takashi Uchiyama of Japan, boxing addict, and if you have, your thoughts about him?
Yeah, Uchiyama's a cracking fighter. Really looking forward to those cards, actually. Both of them, some really good fights on there. Linares, yeah, he's decent. I rate him, but I agree with Gail that he will be beaten by somebody on a boxing level. Can anybody tell me what's happening with Garcia, Mikey Garcia? I mean, is he?
He's out in the West Coast area, Gail. You know anything?
He's been fairly quiet. I'm sure that Dad will and the machine there in Oxnard will get him a fight early in the year. I I don't think he's quite. I don't know what his status is as far as whether he's going up in weight quite yet. I don't think quite yet, but I do think he will. He's talked about going up in weight, so we'll have to see where he lands and who in which division wants him next.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to close the show on that note. I know, Gail, you have to leave, and Sean has already left, so I think we're going to close the show on that note. Thanks for joining us, Gail. Thanks for joining us, Boxing Addicts. Thanks, Sean, for joining us early in the show. Gail, if the folks want to talk to you about boxing or anything else, get the information and let folks know where they can find you.
First of all, you can find my column, Ringside Seat, in Community's digital news online, which is COM, C-O-M-M, Digi, D-I-G-I, news, comdiginews.com. I'm easy to find on Twitter, where I hang as PR Pro San Diego, PR Pro San Diego. And both those accounts have all my other social media particulars, and I love nothing more than chatting up boxing. So hit me up.
Boxing Addict, let the folks know where they can find you if they want to talk boxing or anything else.
Yeah, I like to chat boxing on YouTube. That's about it, really. So you can get me on there at Mr. Boxing Addict.
And I'll give the info about Sean. You can reach him. Just go up Sean Newton. He's all over YouTube. He's pleasantly everybody cares about him being the resident boxing troll of YouTube, because he is everywhere on every channel, talking boxing, giving his opinions and whatnot. So just look up Sean Newton on YouTube. You should be able to find him. If you want to find information about me, Brother JR 76 on Twitter. Also check out the blog P4P Boxing Report.wordpress.com. Check out the podcast page P4P Boxing Report.podomatic.com. The blog is where you can find not only past episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast and YouTube show, but also blog posts, articles, videos, and whatnot done by yours truly. The podcast page is where you can find all information about the Pound for Pound, all of the past episodes of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report podcast. On the blog page as well as the podcast page, you can find links to find us all over social media: Facebook, YouTube, Google+, Twitter, Tumblr. We got a Pinterest board, RSS feed in case you want to subscribe to that. Link to donate your account. We're also on Stitcher Radio. I want to thank you again, Gail, for joining us this week. Thank you, Box.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Thank you all. Merry Christmas to all, and may Sweet Science Santa be good to us all in 2015.
Absolutely. This is the final show of 2014. So we will see you guys next year, January 2015. We start back up again. You guys have a good evening. Good night.
Good night, all.
Yeah, good night.